Well, first of all, thank you all so much for being here. Feel free to keep getting your drinks, and I appreciate that people are quieting down. But first, I'm going to bring up a couple folks up on stage here who I want to give a few minutes to say thank yous, or speak whatever you want to say. I guess it's maybe thank yous, but it's more a pitch for yourself. So I'm Carly Riley. I host the Overpriced JPEGs podcast. Wow, all right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to start by giving a huge thank you to Web3Sense and OpenSea, who are not only sponsors for the whole year for the podcast, which means a lot to me because content creators have to make a living somehow, and it's turbulent times to be anything in Web3, let alone a content creator. So incredibly grateful to Web3Sense and OpenSea for that. But they are also the sponsors of this whole Overpriced Happy Hour tour, which we are doing. This is the second stop on the Happy Hour tour. We did one in Miami. We're now here in Austin. So to say thank you, I'm going to let Web3Sense and OpenSea come on up and say a brief words here, starting with Jim Borger, CEO and co-founder of Web3Sense. Give it up.
Thank you, GM. Thank you, Carly, so much. We are really grateful to be here with you and super grateful to be associated with Carly and her wonderful team at OPJ. And thank you, Daniel, for being here too. And we do analytics. We do insights for any stakeholders in NFT and Web3 communities. We help you assess the value, behavior, influencer, impact. And for the sake of being brief, I'm just going to tell you, go to web3sense.ai. Or you can email me at jim@web3sense.ai if you want to learn more. I'd love to talk to you regardless of what your role might be or what kind of company or group or, whether you're an artist, collector, founder or company, agency, brand going into the space. We're here to help. Thanks very much. Have a great time tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, and next up, Adam Ilinich of OpenSea, which needs no introduction.
Hi, everybody. GM. My name is Adam. I recently joined OpenSea as the head of social. You'll see I've got my notes here. I have to be precise. Welcome to the second stop of the Overpriced JPEGs Happy Hour Tour, sponsored in part by OpenSea. Tonight, you've got a great conversation ahead of you with Carly, who we all know and love, and Daniel, who I got to meet last night at the Yuga community event. Really, really exciting conversation ahead. But before I pass the mic, I want to quickly shill our latest aggregator product, OpenSea Pro, which many of you may recognize as the new and improved version of GEM. We built OpenSea Pro to serve a range of users, from superfans to collectors to crypto noobs, and OpenSea, on the other hand, exists to serve the power user community. We know that different users have different needs, and so we're building really an ecosystem that will serve all of those needs. So that is it from me. I'm gonna hand the mic back to Carly, and we're gonna get tonight rolling. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. All right, a few more thank yous, and then Daniel, we're gonna get you up here, I swear. Let's see. Do I have my order here? Okay. First of all, I wanna say thank you so much to ConsenSys and CoinDesk for putting this whole thing on, letting us use this space. Let's give a huge round of applause. I don't know if I've been having an amazing time at this conference. Sam Ewan, wherever you are, his whole team, really fantastic. Super appreciate it. Galaxy. So we just heard from Web3Sense and OpenSea. Galaxy is also a sponsor of this specific event. They have all sorts of tools to help you manage your community, drive loyalty. They now have a Mintless product, so from Mint on forward, they can help you manage loyalty of your community. Thank you so much to Galaxy for sponsoring this particular Austin stop. I think we have somebody maybe from Galaxy here in the house, I'm hoping. We thank you to Token Proof, who powered this evening. Hopefully you checked in with Token Proof when you came in. Yes, huge Fawns fan, huge Token Proof fan, thank you to them. Liquid Collections, who has been our partner on this whole tour, and our overpriced gin, which is gonna be available very soon. Thank you to Liquid Collections for making that happen. Yeah, that's right, love the cheers. All of our spirits partners, Empathy Wines is sponsoring tonight's event with their amazing wine. We have, Blood, Sweat, and Tears Vodka, Puncher's Chance Bourbon Whiskey, Boscal Mezcal, and those are the three. So thank you to them. Thank you to Cilantro, who is our food partner. And then my final thank you, and then I swear we're getting you up here, Daniel, is, of course, to the OPJ holders, who I am just so incredibly grateful to. Thank you, guys. And to my OPJ team who make all of this possible. Callie Morton is floating around somewhere. She has been handling our whole tour. So a huge shout out to everyone on that side. I hope I didn't forget anybody. It's a chaotic night, folks. It's raining. We're trying to get people out, get people in. All right, and with that, we're about to start. So if you're mumbling over there, you might miss Daniel's first word, and we want to miss a moment of Daniel. I am very, very excited. Oh, my other thank you was to you, Daniel. I don't know if I said that. I'm very excited to bring up on stage with me the new Yuga CEO, Daniel Allegre. Thank you. Wow. Okay. I have been really excited for this conversation.
Be mindful that is my water,
Is
so
it?
I don't want to
Okay.
pollute you
Oh, good
with
to.
what
Oh, I thought somebody
drank.
was taking care of me with some water, but alas. No, I'm kidding.
You can have it.
No,
don't wanna-
I kid. Okay. I'm really excited for this conversation. I know based on the size of this room, there's many others who are excited about this conversation. I have to say, it felt like a really big deal when you were announced as the new CEO, which was last year, though you just started more recently.
That's right.
And it was just really inspiring and encouraging to think that somebody who comes from really probably the biggest gaming company in the world, who was in the C-suite there, was going to come over to our world here in Web3 to run Yuga Labs. And you had your own big announcement that came out today, I believe, about hiring Mike Sievers as the new Yuga Labs CTO. Mike was the EVP, was most recently EVP at Epic Games, I believe. And
Correct.
prior to that was the CTO at Riot. So again, incredibly impressive gaming background. I would love to ask you, as a way to start to get you to give your Yuga vision, let's say, what did you tell Mike? How did you sell Mike to leave his cushy Web2 gaming job and come join us here in the wild world of Web3 at Yuga? What did you say to him?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. And
We don't have time for pleasantries, you know? We're on the clock.
wow, that's an
But you're welcome.
entrepreneur who wants to get to the. Well, here's another pleasantry, by the way.
Oh, geez.
It's amazing that when you are so beloved in this Web3 space that you get introduced as Carly, the person we know and love,
Aw.
and Daniel, the guy I met last night. So that's great. That's awesome. So it's going to take me, I don't know how long before they say that we met last night and kind of like him. Hopefully. No, I don't have that fragile an ego that I need to be loved. No clapping? Come on. No, I'm kidding. No, go. Keep going. All right, enough of the pleasantries. What did I say to Mike Sievers? First, I actually tried to recruit Mike when I was at Activision Blizzard to be CTO of Activision Blizzard. And about 3 weeks after we opened the rec, the Microsoft deal got announced. I said, all right, well, maybe we'll put a hold on the CTO role for Activision. But I always had my eye on Mike. So when I came to Yuga, one of the very first phone calls I made, I said, hey, Mike, you remember that conversation we had? You know, and there's a really big, great company, the gaming company, Activision Blizzard. There's an even better company called Yuga Labs. And, we talked about the vision of what the founders had for Yuga Labs, where I want to take Yuga Labs. And you'll get to meet him. He's fantastic. Culture fit is phenomenal. He's an innovative thinker. He obviously understands Web 2 very well, but he really wants to dive very deep into Web 3, and you're going to see some amazing things from Mike in the continuation of the great legacy of the founders of Yuga Labs.
Did you have to sell him on Web3, or was he already into it?
You know what happens, and I'm sure a lot of you went through this. When I spoke to him, he goes, honestly, I hadn't really thought about this, and to be completely frank, he hasn't been deep in Web3. But I started explaining my rationale, which is leading up to your likely question thereafter, as to why.
Just go for it.
I
Go
came
now.
for
You know,
Yuga.
expediency.
Okay. How many words can I? Okay. So it's very clear why I came to Web3. Activision Blizzard obviously has some of the most iconic gaming titles in the world: World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, Overwatch, Diablo, etc. And two things started happening in my time there that are kind of obvious, but I didn't realize how important it was until I was actually in the hot seat running the company. One is that no matter how good your game is, if an influencer doesn't speak highly of your game, your game is dead. So you can do a great branding TV campaign, you can do whatever display advertising you want online, but if a famous influencer doesn't speak highly of your game, it's not going to go anywhere. Now, if you look at something like Ryan Reynolds, what he did with Mint Mobile, influencers are moving away from just wanting to be a spokesman for a game or talking about the game. They actually want to be involved in the overall ecosystem of the game. And that's absolutely happening in gaming. So they don't want to say, oh, the Diablo game is great. And they don't want to say the Diablo game is great, pay me for it. They say, well, how can I be part of the whole ecosystem? That was crystal clear for me, a signal, okay, we need to start fundamentally thinking how gaming works with influencers. Gamers as well. Gamers spend tremendous hours, as hopefully many of you are gamers out here, spend tremendous hours and a lot of money on the game. And if for whatever reason you reached your limit and you don't like the next version of the game, you go, well, now what? Oh, I got to start over in another game. And there's a lot of pent up frustration in gamers of saying, hey, I actually want to be able to take my persona. I want to be able to capitalize on what I've been able to do and the progress I made in a game. So it just so happened I was in Miami and I met with Greg and Wiley, as you know, the two of the four co-founders of Yuga Labs, and we just started shooting the breeze. And they said, well, that problem, we can solve it for you with Yuga Labs and where we want to take Yuga Labs. And honestly, it was a marriage made in heaven, where they're thinking, how they're focused on content and content creation and community, and then the evolution into not only gaming, but just overall entertainment and connectivity through entertainment and putting creators and community at the core. That's really what gaming should be all about. And that's where Yuga's going to go.
I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but how did you first get connected to Wiley and Greg? Did they cold outreach, or were you interested in Web3 and sort of shopping around some
It was a
conversations?
fantastic recruiter.
Oh, wow.
Who said, hey, these are two guys you should meet. We were supposed to meet for dinner in New York and didn't happen. And I was visiting my parents in Mexico, and they said, hey, we're in Miami. Do you want to fly up? I said, sure. Flew up, and that was it.
Wow.
That's good recruiting.
That is good recruiting. So obviously, that was very compelling and speaks to your belief in this as the future. One stat that I found that is interesting, Roblox raised at a $4 billion valuation back in 2020. Yuga, I think many people may know, has a $4 billion valuation, both led by A16Z, which is interesting. When Roblox got that valuation back in 2020, they had 115 million monthly active users. What is your vision for how Yuga gets 115 million monthly active users?
That would be undershooting where I want to go. So. No. That's just lame bravado. The reality is this. Look, there's an obvious tension that exists in where we are and where we need to go, right? We have a very intimate community, the Bored Ape community, the Mutant Ape, the CryptoPunks, the Meebits community. It's very tight, relatively small in the grand scheme of scale. And we want to make sure that we continue to actually keep that unity of the community and continue to provide value for them. At the same time, and by the way, I'm not looking at it in terms of a 4 billion valuation or a 40 billion valuation or 400 billion valuation. What I care about is actually providing great and unique experiences and ways for communities to connect. And if that leads to 150 or 200 or 300 million unique users, better, great. But that's not what's really driving this. What's driving this is it's crystal clear for me, and I think for all of you here, that this is a tectonic change that is going to happen in so many areas of media, tourism, finance. It's already happening. And the key for me is, one, that we continue to be a company known for creativity and connection and community. But at the same time, because we have such a head start, a lot of people are looking to us to not only continue the innovation, but also bring people on to what Web3 can do. Other side is clearly a path towards that. And it reminds me a little bit of the internet of 1994 and 95. Some of you may remember what it was like to connect to the internet back then. You had to get a modem, connect it to your PC, then you call your telco, and the telco would say, oh, well, we don't have a specialist who understands understands internet, so he'll show up in 2 weeks, and then he shows up in 2 weeks, and then he connected and it worked for half an hour, but then it didn't work again. And then a company comes around called America Online, and they send you a disk. They go, oh, what do you do with a disk? Stick it in, you're online. And it was a miracle, like for people who didn't have a PhD in computer science to be able to actually get onto the internet. That is where the opportunity lies, right? How is it that we can make it that you have great experiences? Obviously, you leverage the technology that Web3 brings to the table and bring as many potential users of what Web3 enables onto the platform. That's what I want to do with Otherside. And people have been asking me a lot, hey, Daniel, you come from Activision Blizzard. Hey, you just hired a CTO from Riot and Epic. Hey, your chief gaming officer comes from Scopely. Is Yuga now a gaming company? And we're not a gaming company. We're a content company. We're a community company. But we're using gaming as an entryway to Web3 because there's actually very strong similarities between the experiences in game and online game and what you can do with Web3. And it's not daunting like it was daunting to connect to the internet before AOL came around. And by the way, I don't want to compare ourselves to AOL because AOL was a dud 4 years later. But the principle is the same, though. And this is why the experiences that Spencer Tucker, who's over here, who's our chief gaming officer, is building, will enable consumers and gamers, and you saw it in the Dookie Dash, to actually experience what Web3 is and not feel commercialized like the way Web2 companies are thinking about gaming, but actually say, oh, wow, this is what you can do. This is great. I want to participate.
So you're not a gaming company, which is interesting, but your priority and focus right now has been a lot on gaming, and that's the tool you're using to onboard people, it sounds like, with things like Dookie Dash. What I think is interesting, you have Dookie Dash, you've got Legends of Mara that feel like these casual games. And I'm curious how, when you think about gaming for Yuga, casual gaming fits into it. And I guess I want to ask it like this. When you think about Otherside, do you think about Otherside as a AAA game itself, that these casual games like Dookie Dash, et cetera, are maybe testing grounds for features that'll be a part of that game or ways to keep the audience engaged while you lead up to that AAA game? Or do you see Otherside as a platform upon which a lot of casual games will exist?
So you want a very precise and quick answer? Yes.
Okay.
So
let me put it this way. What do you think is the best analogy for Otherside?
Look, I think Otherside. So I can't give short answers. I apologize.
That's all right. It's all right.
So
now we're no longer in pleasantry, so it's okay.
okay, good.
Take your time.
So if you look at what Facebook did with their metaverse, first, it's a misconception that the metaverse is new. Metaverse has been around for a long, long time. You look at World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is a metaverse. The experiences are metaverse-like, and where they were heading, they being Meta or Facebook, basically what they did is they said, well, we're going to build these functionalities, these tools, and then people will come and love it, right? And then they come and they show up, and there's Mark and 2 other people, and they go, so now what? And now what do we do? And the approach that we're taking is obviously very, very different with Otherside. First, yes, we are building these functionalities, and some of them are actually casual games. You can imagine that eventually the gaming and the gamification of Otherside is going to go beyond casual games into something much more immersive, that we are going to partner with third parties to build on top of this platform. But we're seeding it with a very passionate community that has a reason to come together. And that's a very different approach from what other companies have done. So that's why we're bringing Bored Ape holders onto Otherside, and they've experienced it with the first trip and the second trip, and the gaming experience that Spencer and the team are building are to bring the community together and have them realize beyond Now you're on the other side. Now you can connect. These are the other things that you can do and experience. A little bit like I was saying with Web 2 gamers, how they can experience Web 3. This is how NFT holders can experience what gaming and gamification of a platform can be. That's phase one. And we're going to get to a point where other side is not episodic as it is now, right? The first trip was, I don't know, between first trip and second trip was about 7-8 months.
And then April, yeah.
Yeah, it was a very long lag. You're going to get to a persistent state for other side, and it'll have some great gaming experiences, but we'll also have other community elements to it. The end state of where other side is, one, we fundamentally believe in interoperability. We don't necessarily want to be the platform, but we want to be an innovation platform. And hopefully there'll be other platforms that interoperate with ours that they're also innovating. This is not a zero-sum game. There's a lot of users that we can all leverage from. And at the core, starting with Web3 and the interoperability of Web3, I think is actually going to be a huge differentiator and a huge market mover.
How long until we get to that more persistent state of other side?
Soonish.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So I want to talk a little bit about the economics here, and it might lead me to a question about risks, because things are quite different than when that, let's call it $4 billion valuation, just for the sake of marking time. Like, things have changed a lot since then, so I want to ask you about some of the risks that you see. But to get a little bit granular here, you were at Activision Blizzard. Under that purview is Candy Crush, which is an incredibly successful game, free to play, but makes a ton of money when it comes to in-game level ups and buy ups. And you can tell I don't play Candy Crush, but I'm assuming it's something like that. What's interesting with something like Dookie Dash, obviously, was that you could buy things in game only with ApeCoin. And also to play, you needed a sewer pass. I'm curious how you think about this moving forward. Oh, and one other thing I'll say before I get to my question here is I think I saw a quote from you in Bloomberg where you said the per user revenue of Dookie Dash was something that you would have dreamed of at Activision Blizzard. Do I have that?
I think the term was die for.
I thought you were going to correct something substantive there. Okay, got it. Yes, you would die for those economics at Activision Blizzard, which I assume that the monetization there was on those two things I just mentioned: people buying into ApeCoin to then use ApeCoin to buy level ups in Dookie Dash, and buying secondary sales on sewer passes, since you guys had dropped the sewer passes. Is that right?
That's correct.
So is this what you see as monetization for casual games, let's call it, within other side, within the Yuga ecosystem moving forward? Or do you see a world where you need to move to easier fiat payments in-game, versions that can be played by anybody, not just token-gated versions? Speaking about sewer passes, the token-gated version here. Or do you like that model for moving forward?
Yeah. I'm going to be completely transparent. I don't know. We're actually testing the various models. And, one thing that we're very, very mindful of, and this goes to the point of scaling and how fast can you get to 150 or 200 million users, is we want to make sure that our deed holders, the other deed holders, and also the NFT holders get significant value for their investments that they did. But at the same time, we know that we can't be a true scaled platform if we're going to have 50,000 or 100,000 unique holders. I need to get to something much, much bigger than that. So we're right now trying to figure out the mechanics of what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to own, and what special value do you get? And then what does it mean to come from the outside and participate in the experience, but not necessarily be a deed owner or an NFT holder? To the monetization point, and this is what really excited me. We announced that I was joining Yuga in December, and Spencer and the team kind of walked me through a little bit what they were going to do with Dookie Dash, and I said, all right, so let me think about the mechanics here. So you are going to limit the number of users, yes, and they're only going to be allowed to play for 3 weeks, yes. I said, that's sacrilege in gaming, right? Who in the world says only these people can play and you can only play for a limited time? And okay, well, I have to rethink my mental framework of how this all plays out. And then the other one, I was actually honestly nervous. because I said, all right, so you got a company of about 100 plus people, and the mechanics that it takes from having a Bored Ape to be able then to have the token and then claim the token and then play, and then there's cheating, and then at the end you have to make sure that you got the right tallies and the servers work and et cetera. Are you guys sure you're going to pull this off? And at that point I realized I was a big company guy, right? Because Activision would have had thousands of people working on this for months to figure it out. But you had such a passionate team that said, we're going to get this out no matter what, and we're going to have a fantastic experience. And their only glitch was they were delayed by what, 3 days, Spencer? 4 days? That was it. Beyond that, it was flawless. Which, aside from that, the economics were phenomenal. But that's not what got me really excited. What just got me excited, I said, dang, this is a team that knows how to rock it. And they did. It was amazing.
This might be a dumb question, but you lay it out like that. You're like, all right, only 3 weeks, limited number of people can play it. Why did it work?
Look, I think first, one is there's a kind of like a fear of what Web3 and gaming and NFT is. It's tainted by what the traditional Web2 companies have already done, right? Which is they say, oh yeah, NFT, we believe in it. So you can now buy a sword, a limited edition sword in the game, and we're going to make money off of you. And gamers see through that, right? They say, okay, so you're already asking me for $70 for the premium game, and on top of that, digital goods, and on top of that, you're going to sell me a sword. That's not interesting. But to fundamentally think about gaming, I think Spencer said this, I called him out a lot today, but Spencer said, like, you really have to turn your idea of how you make games upside down when you think of it from a Web3 perspective. And that's what Dookie Dash was. And that was the first experiment that said, all right, NFT holders, here's what an experience could be, starting with games, and eventually you can imagine it's going to go into other spaces, that has ownership and identity at its core, and what that experience could be like. And when people witnessed it, and it was relatively simple to figure out, obviously really hard to win. I won't tell you how badly I did, but I did very, very, very poorly. And that, I think, then people said, all right, I get it. I get the mechanics. I get that this isn't just about making money. This is about an experience. And then people just engage with it.
Well, so you say people realize this isn't just about making money, but I'm actually curious, like, what of the success of Dookie Dash to you felt something, like it said something fundamental about Web3, and to what extent it says something fundamental about Yuga, which is that your shit is worth a lot, and like people who play and win and get more Yuga stuff can sell it for a lot of money. Like, was it about the money?
Yeah. Look, so the players of Dookie Dash, or the owners of the tokens, I think were divided into 3 groups. There were people who said, I love gaming and I'm going to play this game and I'm going to dedicate my time to it. And they played. There were others who said, hey, actually, there's a light at the end of the tunnel here, and I want to see where this takes me. So they had professional players play on their behalf. And yeah, maybe some people over there who did that. Oh, you're the professional player. There you go. Thank you. And then there were others who basically said, I'm not a gamer. I don't really quite get it, but I want to get value out of my token. So they actually sold the token. And what ended up happening as a result is obviously it generated revenue for us, but it also brought a very large number of new community members onto our platform. That was no cost marketing, tremendous engagement, brought some of the professional players like the Fortnite player who ended up winning onto our platform, and they experimented with it. And as a result, we ended up seeing a whole host of different reasons why they loved it. One is I can make money off of it if I sell my token. 2, I can have some others play, and then I can actually get the benefits of what that means. Or 3, I can actually play it and enjoy it and have fun with it. So we actually hit on all 3 different components of it. And as I said, from an engagement perspective, from a payer conversion, from an average revenue per user, like in certain circumstances, 100 to 200 times what you would see in a normal game that lasts months.
I have more follow-ups, but I'm also keeping an eye on time, and I need to move us along. So I'll take your word on all that, and we'll have a follow-up conversation where we dive deeper into the sustainability of this. I want to talk about risks. I alluded to this earlier. The change since, let's call it the $4 billion valuation that I don't mean to keep harping on, but I am for some reason. Since then, secondary royalties are suddenly in major jeopardy and trending towards not existing. Regulatory headwinds that are pretty significant, and Yuga is certainly right in the eye of the storm given your prominence. And then just the market, like all-time lows in terms of volume and active users and, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think are the biggest risks to Yuga? And maybe put another way would be, if the worst happened and the vision doesn't come true and Yuga doesn't succeed, like what will that story have been?
That's a great question. Honestly, in my view, the biggest risk is if we deviate from our mission. And sure, there's regulatory risks. We haven't really been very proactive in engaging with, for all intents and purposes, the U.S. In other countries, and I think there are international people here, that the situation is very, very different. I've already started engaging with regulators and senators to actually put a face behind Yuga Labs. I know we've been a little bit behind the scenes and people didn't necessarily know who we were. I've got a great reputation in the industry, and I'm willing to put my face behind or in front of this company with regulators. So I'm going to be spending a fair amount of my time there. You're going to ask a question?
I was going to ask, what are you saying to these regulators, or if you could say to something to regulators now, like what are you telling them?
There's two main things. One is just tell us the rules. Tell us where it is that you want us to play. And the other one is actually a very legitimate risk for a number of companies. After the SVB fallout, you saw a number of companies who had a fair amount of their money in SVB in the crypto space who said, all right, well, now what are we going to do? Where are we going to put our money? And some of the larger banks are saying, well, there's regulatory risks. This goes to the first point. And they say, well, you can't park your money here. So London's calling, Hong Kong's calling, Dubai's calling. And what I said to actually a very influential senator at dinner 2 weeks ago, I said, if we're not careful, here's what's going to happen. Forget about like what Coinbase is saying, that we're going to relocate to another country and send employees, elsewhere. That's obviously a disaster scenario for the country. But in the short term, you may end up seeing, for very legitimate reasons, funding money going to London or Dubai. And one, that's a loss for the US. But two, from an industry perspective, think of what that means. That means that regulators are going to say, you see, I told you, they're hiding their money and they're sending it to Dubai. And that's not the reason at all. Has nothing to do with it. Actually, we're actually legitimate players, and we want to play by the rules.
I want to talk about the other IP that you have. Obviously, we've been talking about mostly like Bored Apes when we talk about Dookie Dash and everything you guys have coming out there. But obviously, you have the biggest collection of IP out there, from CryptoPunks to Meebits to 10KTF. How do you prioritize all of those different IPs? And I was talking to Derek Edwards earlier, shout out Derek if he's here, but they all have different end users. I mean, Meebits, I'm a Meebits holder, so I will say, like, in some ways feels like it has the most mass appeal because it's arguably the most family friendly. And how do you think about balancing the needs of these different IP properties and how you prioritize them?
This goes to your previous question. The biggest risk to us as a company is that we don't stay true to our mission and true to our communities. And I've had now the good fortune of meeting the Meebits community in New York. I met with the CryptoPunks community here. I met with the Bored Ape community here as well. Some of them overlap, but a lot of them are very, very different. And what they're looking for out of CryptoPunks is very different from Meebits, as you know, and very different from Bored Ape. So the way I'm treating each of these is as independent, I'll call them franchises. And not commercial franchises, but actually content franchises. and giving them the liberty to decide what is necessary for their business, what's necessary for the connection with their community, and build out their vision for it. At the same time, I also know that Otherside is a unifying platform, and when we're trying to figure out for each one of them, what is the Otherside story, if there is. But at the core, look, the community tells you what's necessary, and each of the franchises or each of the various business units is going to decide for their own what's necessary.
So connected to this, you said earlier, you're not a gaming company, you're a content company or a storytelling company or both.
Content and community.
Content and community. Do you have immediate plans, and this may tie into each of these franchises, for TV series or an animated online series or movies? I mean, one thing that strikes me, having interviewed a lot of big companies in this space, is Web3 seems to want to take on everything all at once. How do you think about that?
I won't say no and I won't say yes, and not because I'm hiding anything. Look, we are a young company. We are a relatively small company. And I've spent my first 3 weeks, now this is the completion of my third week here. Yeah, completion of my third week here. Literally going franchise by franchise and looking over the plans. And I added them up. They're all critical. They're all mission critical for each of them. You know, it's 10KTF, CryptoPunks, Meebits, Bored Ape, and Otherside. And they're 12 critical initiatives that we have for a company of 100 and X people. That's a lot. That's a lot on our plate. So I'm not going to say that we're not eventually going to go down that space, but we have a lot for us to execute in 2023, and that may be down the road, but we don't have any immediate plans for it.
You're 3 weeks into the job?
3 weeks.
Okay, and you've been meeting, and whatever your takeaways have been for the first 3 weeks, how would you describe your, call it, top 3 priorities at this point?
Focus, obviously, is one. It's very, very easy as a company to, we get a lot of inbounds, a lot of inbound interest in so many different areas. Whether it's like, hey, why don't you start your own coffee making business, to why don't you start a Netflix series, et cetera. We have a lot on our plate, and we just have to stay laser focused on the things that we need to do. 2, it's all about our people, both inside as well as our community building. So bringing in great talent and ensuring that they're aligned to the key priorities of the business, I think is number 2. And number 3 is just how do we enable the ecosystem, to benefit from Web3, whether it's our partnership with the likes of Gucci or Puma, like we've done recently, all the way to gaming partnerships to bring them onto Otherside and see how we can enable. This is, as I said, this is not a winner takes all situation. We want to enable the entire ecosystem, because when the tide rises,
Lifts all boats.
lifts all boats. There you go.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
English is my third language, so I'm trying to
Wow.
show me some love, please. I'm kidding. I was kidding. Oh, here's going to be the headline.
Yuga
needs
CEO
some
gets
love.
on stage and begs for love.
We'll edit that out, right? This is not going to make it.
No, we're not live. Okay, we have time for just a couple more questions. So I want to ask, obviously you have big plans, big vision. How do you maintain value for your NFT holders as you scale the business?
Yeah. I think it's what we talked about. It is continuing to build these innovative experiences for the holders and have them actually continue to see the value in what they get. Dookie Dash is a perfect example. So we'll continue to do that. For CryptoPunks or Meebits, it's a little bit different, but we'll continue to stay focused on building value and then creating ongoing experiences for our holders, and then eventually for new holders.
Something that Yuga's done, I would say, better than basically anybody in the space has been seeming to manage shipping with hype. Like, it feels like a lot of businesses in this space, once they actually start delivering something, sentiment goes down or floor price goes down to the extent that you want to use that as a measure. And Yuga has avoided that pretty impressively, where people get excited and there's hype and there's whatever, and then something gets delivered and it doesn't tank anything. Do you worry about maintaining that?
Absolutely. Like, how could I not be paranoid about that? You know, when you have such iconic brands and the expectations from the community are so strong, of course you take that very seriously. You know, I look at my Twitter posts and the amount of love and expectations that I get from the responses is tremendous. But we have founders who are grounded in what Yuga stands for. And as I said, we had a meeting of the minds as to what we really wanted to build and stay true to what Yuga is and what will be going forward. I think we will continue to do what's right by the community, stay really connected, listen. We get tremendous feedback from the community in things that we should be doing. So we're very, very sensitive about that. But we just need to keep innovating and awing and shocking people with really great stuff.
Okay, I'm going to ask this last question and get you out of here right on time. What is a coda?
A coda is something you must have.
Daniel, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Carly, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, so
Appreciate
much for being here.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.